back to the Metro on WTET. I'm Robyn Vincent. When people began leaving Detroit decades ago, the city lost a lot of development. The buildings got older, and small developments like cafes, bike shops, and smaller apartments went with them. To repopulate the city, Detroit has been playing catch-up. Over the past decade, that's often meant putting money toward big development projects in the downtown area, projects like District Detroit and the Hudson's building. These projects include a lot of money from private developers and a lot of subsidies from us residents. But since Detroit began increasing its population gain, what's gotten less attention has been smaller projects. The projects in neighborhoods, the projects that more directly touch everyday residents. So what can the city do to encourage more small-scale development projects? And why do they matter? These are things some folks are thinking more intentionally about as we approach November's general mayoral election. And Chase Cantrell is one of those people. He's the executive director of the nonprofit Building Community Value, and he's been trying to assist small-scale developers. He wants residents to have more autonomy in what happens to the businesses around them, to the vacant lots nearby, and in what happens to their own homes. To discuss all of this, we have Chase Cantrell with us now. Chase, welcome back to the program.
It's great to be back.
And I also want to note that Chase's organization is offering in-person real estate development training. Applications for that program close August 27th. You can sign up at bcvdetroit.org. Okay, so Chase, we got to make the case here. You have to make the case, actually, for small-scale development projects. What are we talking about? And when we say small-scale developments, why do they matter?
So in the city of Detroit, we are a pretty unique city in that the majority of our structures, our residential structures are single-family homes, right? Yeah. Over 60%, which is pretty different than other major cities. And I think many of your listeners probably understand what has happened in the city over the years with the foreclosure crisis, both the banking foreclosure crisis and the tax foreclosure crisis that happened after 2008. So we lost a lot of, not just lost, there was stripped away a lot of the wealth of Detroit homeowners.
Yeah.
And subsequent to that, we saw the stripping away of the really the fabric of our neighborhoods. So when I say small scale development, I'm talking about those single family homes, those duplexes, all around the city that we see everywhere, that especially if you live in these communities, you may see those homes across the street from you, down the street from you. And the residents that come into our program are asking themselves, how do I revitalize my community? How do I revitalize my neighborhood? How do I purchase that home, renovate it, and sell it or rent it to someone so that I can have a neighbor? 10 years ago when the program started, that was a real question. What do residents do with all of these vacant structures in their neighborhoods? 10 years later, we see that there are a lot of people who have stepped up, who have taken not just the training that BCV offers, but there are other training programs in the city as well that we can get into. But people are really looking around them saying, I want to get involved in making my own neighborhood beautiful. And people are putting their own money behind that and their own effort and their time. And that's what we're talking about. We're really talking about how do we bring Detroit neighborhoods back.
You've alluded to a few of the cascading effects of doing this when it comes to, let's say, transforming single-family homes into homes that have multiple units, and when it comes to creating some of these smaller opportunities or opportunities for smaller businesses, I should say. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit more about the community impacts and the positive benefits that you see from doing this.
Sure. So when you stabilize a home on a block, you really begin to stabilize more than just that single home, right? The more stable, renovated, occupied homes that we have on any block in the city of Detroit, the more likely it is that we're actually saving the other homes on that block as well, right? More small scale developers come in, more people see that there's value, not just monetary value, but the it's in the name, the community value that we see, and we begin to see a cascading effect of more investment. So that's really what people want to see. And at its height, we may talk more about the land bank, but the Detroit Land Bank Authority at its height had 30,000 structures in its inventory. Now it's down to a little under 4,000. Right. So what that represents is two things. One is that there have been a lot of homes that have been demolished in the city of Detroit. We've had 27,000 structures in the past decade demolished around the city, residential structures. But we've also had a lot of rehabs. So, I mean, the land bank provides a unique opportunity for those neighborhood developers to really access buildings, access land, and bring their desires to fruition in their neighborhoods.
Let's stay on the topic of the land bank for a moment, if we could. I mean, it acts as a holder of publicly owned residential properties, as you have described, and it has a few programs meant to allow residents to obtain those lots and discounted homes. But there's been a lot of controversy around Detroit's land bank, in part because a lot of people want to buy property from it, but they're blocked from doing so. Is that right? And what do you? So what is the solution here?
So what the land bank has done over the past year, they put together something called their Next 5 strategic plan, and they brought together experts, community members. They had a community advisory committee to figure out what could the land bank be over the next 5 years. And I'm actually really excited about that. Not only because I was invited in as a community member to be a part of that process, but because we're about to have a new mayor, right? And what I really think our current mayor has really put his stamp on the land bank, right? Like in 2014, when we had a new mayor and new city council, the land bank completely transformed. It was founded in 2008, but it really wasn't until 2014 that it became what we know today, where at its height it had 100,000 vacant parcels and structures, so total vacant land and structures in its inventory. And the goal was to get rid of that, especially the structures, as quickly as possible, right? So, I mean, sales were happening to anyone who had the cash, investors or otherwise. And I think now that the land bank is at a different point where it's mostly vacant land in the land bank now, it's not a lot of structures left. They have to figure out, well, they have put together a proposal for what the land bank could be if it's allowed to actually operate under this new strategic plan. So a new mayor coming in can say, all right, we want to have land and structures more accessible to Detroit residents, right? We want to make it harder for speculators to get land. We want to add more subsidy to the pot so that, local residents can actually make these projects happen more easily. So I really do think that the next mayor that comes in, as well as the new city council members that we're going to get, can have a completely different framework for how the land bank can operate in the service of Detroiters.
Because Mayor Duggan didn't give the land bank any city money to operate for the next year. So you want to see a sharp departure from that, is what you're saying, in terms of the support that the land bank could receive. There are criticisms that it acts without transparency. What would you say to that?
I would completely agree. And that Next 5 strategic plan, one of the goals is to be more transparent. So I think that we need city council and the new mayor to really push the land bank to stay true to what it said publicly it wants to do, right? It needs more transparency. It needs greater access to land. And what I'll say is that often what the land bank will say is that they don't come up with the plan necessarily of how the city should be shaped. It's really up to the Detroit Planning Department, the Housing Revitalization Department, and they are just following their lead. Well, now that we're going to have, again, a new administration and new city council, and we're redeveloping our master plan of policies, which is happening right now. With all of that in place, the land bank could become a very different place, and it's really up to these new policymakers to demand something new of the land bank.
This is the Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. My guest is Chase Cantrell. He's the executive director of the nonprofit Building Community Value. That organization is offering in-person real estate development training. Applications for that close at the end of August. You can sign up at bcvdetroit.org. That's B as in Bravo. Now, Chase, we're talking right now about the impacts that policymakers can have on development in the city. And so that has me thinking about Detroit's mayoral race. And you're alluding to just how important it is that the next leader of Detroit is thinking about things on a smaller level, the benefits of small scale development. Do you feel like either of the candidates that we have to choose from in the November election, and that's Reverend Solomon Kinloch Jr. and City Council President Mary Sheffield, do either of them prioritize small scale development projects to the degree that you'd like, or have they? I mean, we can look at Sheffield's record, and then as far as Kinloch goes, it's just what he's said so far. So what is your take on both of them?
So for me, it really is. Both of them have talked about affordable housing in particular.
Yeah.
Right. And even before the primary, we heard all the candidates talk about affordable housing, and it really is an admission that we understand that we still have a low income city with over 30% of Detroiters living at the poverty level. And depending on the reports that you look to, whether Detroit Future City, whether Detroit Justice Center, we need tens of thousands of new affordable housing units, right? So Pastor Kinloch has called for 10,000 new affordable housing units. Mary Sheffield has also called for new tools to be able to build affordable housing. To both of them, what I would say is that it takes so much subsidy to build any housing, right? Whether it's market rate, affordable, that what a city like Detroit will have to do is reprioritize how it budgets dollars to be able to help developers build affordable. Because essentially what affordable housing is, if it costs, $1,000 to rent a unit, what we are saying on the just market rate units, what we are saying is developer who would like to make a profit to survive, we need you to rent that at $800, $700, $600, right? That gap is something that the government has to help fund. What we're going to see with this next mayor, unfortunately, is they're not going to have the same resources that Mayor Duggan had, right? ARPA dollars will have already been distributed.
Right.
Other federal dollars that we've gotten will no longer be available, right? So this next mayor, whoever it is, will be operating in a much more constrained way. So when we talk about things about subsidy, downtown versus the neighborhoods, like that is something that comes up repeatedly. No matter where we are developing, and this is what I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter if you're developing in Midtown or downtown or anywhere else in the city of Detroit, almost every development project needs subsidy because it costs so much to build anywhere in the country, especially in Detroit, that it doesn't make market sense to build in most places. That's where you need the government.
I'm wondering how much of the cost of building new housing is tied up in permitting and time spent costs. Is there opportunity for the next mayor to take some big scissors and cut red tape to make development cheaper and faster?
So there are. I will give credit to this current administration that over the past 10 years, if you go to the planning department, BC, to any of the governmental departments that touch housing and development, things have gotten better. They're still not great, but things have gotten better, right? Like we have new technological systems, processes are a little bit more streamlined, costs are a little bit more clear. So things are better, and there are tons of opportunities for the next mayor to continue to do that work. But what I'll say is that there could be cost savings in terms of permitting, in terms of property taxes, for example. I think both candidates have talked about bringing property taxes down. But even if property taxes were zero, even if this was the most efficient, development ecosystem in the country, it would still cost more to construct than a unit can be rented or sold for. So that's the problem. That's why we have such an affordable housing crisis everywhere in the nation, is because of construction pricing. It's not just because of governmental processes.
Okay, so what is the answer then? You're saying one of the biggest barriers is the financial one.
It is.
When it comes to small scale developers. So what is the answer to that?
So there are, especially for small scale developers, there are a couple answers. One is that if you approach a traditional bank, not to call any out, but we have quite a few national banks located in the city. Many of them will not lend for small scale development projects. They see those as investments, real estate investing, and usually they don't provide products for that kind of development. So we turn to what's called community development financial institutions. These are nonprofit financial institutions. Some really good ones in the city. Opportunity Resource Fund is one. LISC is another. That do lend for residential, but again, it can be more difficult. It can be time-consuming, costly. So it's even in the lending sector, providing more opportunities for capital. Right? We need more lenders to open their doors to be able to provide products for this kind of development. But also in a way that doesn't burden the small scale developer, right? Like actually allowing these processes to be easier to access.
I want to end by quickly acknowledging the training sessions that we have mentioned. And again, they teach people about the cost of real estate development projects, how to work with the Detroit Land Bank, and how to work with banks. In the last 30 seconds that we have here, what's a project or development or idea that you've been most proud of that's come out of these training sessions you've been leading?
Well, there are tons of alum throughout the city who started with single family housing or duplexes and are now doing, for example, ground up development. Like I look at Edward Carrington, who's doing the ribbon on East Warren, right? He started with building community value. He took other training courses in the city, and now we think of him as a mature developer who's doing big projects and building affordable housing in the city. So I look at folks like him, but also we just reached 5,000 learners on our online course. We have an in-person but an online course as well. And over this weekend, we just hit that mark after 1 year of having that in place. So again, we're trying to make this accessible to as many people as possible in the most affordable and accessible way as we can.
We will link to the in-person real estate development training that you are offering. You can also go right to B as in Bravo, CVDetroit.org to sign up there. That application process closes August 25th. Chase Cantrell, the executive director of the nonprofit Building Community Value. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
My pleasure.
Coming up on the Metro, the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History is celebrating 60 years of highlighting untold stories, untold histories, and the people who animated them. We'll learn more about the legacy of its founder next. This is the Metro on WDET, and this is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation.